Ever walk out of a one-on-one meeting thinking, man, was I too harsh? Or maybe you've thought the opposite. Did I just let that slide again? Yeah, that line between being firm and being kind, that's one that every manager will cross over and over. And the messed up part is you rarely know you've crossed it until it's already too late. Ask me how I know. Someone's disengaged, someone's frustrated, or someone's now walking all over you because they learned you'll never follow through. It's this invisible line, right? It shifts. Some days you're like, nope, I'm standing my ground. Other days you're like, I don't have the energy to fight these little battles. So you let it slide. And then that's when things start to slip. Not all at once, just a little bit at a time. Until one day you realize your team really isn't listening anymore. Deadlines are fuzzy, standards are soft, and you're sitting there thinking, how did we get here? It's a balancing act that no one really prepares you for. One day, you're the cool boss everyone likes. Next time, you're the hard ass who suddenly changed. And you start questioning yourself. Am I the problem here? You're not. You're just learning the difference between being respected and being liked. See, when you first move into leadership, your brain is still thinking like an employee. Again, ask me how I know. You want harmony. You want to be liked. You want to prove that you're not that boss. The micromanaging, the ego-driven one, the one that everybody hates to work for. But then someone drops the ball and you hesitate. You tell yourself, it's fine, I'll fix it myself. You avoid the awkward conversations. You rationalize it. You say things like, they probably didn't mean to, or I don't want to demotivate them. And that's the moment right there you start moving to too soft. Because when you avoid small accountability moments, you create big performance problems. You start to trade short-term comfort for long-term chaos. And here's what usually happens. The more you avoid, the more you build quiet resentment until one day you snap. And the team's like, oh my God, what's your problem? You're an animal. They don't realize this blow up started 6 weeks ago when you first let that one little thing slide. That's what swinging between too soft and too harsh looks like. It's not a personality issue, it's a boundaries issue. And most managers don't have bad intentions. They're just trying to protect relationships, not realizing that avoiding the truth will slowly erode the trust. So let's work on reframing this. Being too harsh isn't really about your tone. It's about your intent. And being too soft isn't about kindness. It's about clarity. When you're too harsh, it's usually because you're reacting, not leading. You've let things pile up. You're frustrated. You're pissed. You finally say what's on your mind, but it comes out like a punch instead of a point. When you're too soft, you're protecting feelings instead of performance. So you're hoping that people just get the message without you actually having to say it directly. And let me tell you this, hope is not a management strategy. You want to live in that nice middle ground, that calm, clear space where your team knows two things. You care about them and you expect results. You can say, I know you've had a lot on your plate, but missing that deadline impacted the team. Let's figure out how we can prevent it next time. That type of response is firm and it's fair. No drama, no ego, no guilt trip. Just standards with empathy. But here's the catch. This middle ground, it doesn't come naturally. You've got to train that muscle. You've got to notice your triggers. You've got to catch yourself before you swing too far to one side or the other. And that means paying attention to how you respond, not just how your team reacts. Because your tone, your pacing, your body language, it all communicates something. Now, quick pause, because this is the exact kind of real world stuff that we dig into in the Better Boss Club. It's where I get to actually help managers apply this stuff, not just nod along. Right now, I'm in the building process. So you can go in the link in the description to join the waitlist to get early access for when the door is open. That way, you are first in line to be a founding member. Okay, back to the main point of this video. The truth. Being firm doesn't mean being cold, and being kind doesn't mean being weak. You can be direct and decent. You can hold people accountable and still care about them as humans. Those two things aren't opposites. They're actually partners. But here's what makes that hard. Inconsistency. Your team doesn't trust what you say, they trust what you do. If one week you let things slide and the next week you blow up, they won't know which version of you they're getting on any given day. And uncertainty will kill trust faster than any tough feedback ever could. So how do we fix this? By setting consistent standards for yourself first. Before you address a performance issue, ask, what outcome do I actually want here? Because if your goal is to punish, you're going to sound harsh. If your goal is to avoid conflict, you're going to sound soft. But if your goal is to teach, you're probably going to sound balanced. Leaders who lead with teaching energy create accountability without the fear. They're firm about the standard, but they're flexible in how people learn to meet it. That's where real respect comes from. Not from being liked, not from being feared, but from being predictable in your fairness. So if you're wondering, where that line is, this right now will be your compass. Am I doing what's easy for me or what's best for the team? Being too soft usually feels easy now, but hard later. Being too harsh feels satisfying now, but damaging later. That middle zone, the calm firmness, that's where leadership lives. And the more you practice it, and you do have to practice, the quieter your guilt gets. You stop second guessing every decision. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop walking on eggshells around your own expectations, and you start saying things like, hey, I value the effort, but this needs to change. And you mean it. No sugarcoating, no yelling, just clarity. And clarity, well, that's leadership gold. Because when your team knows exactly what they can expect from you, they can stop guessing and they can start delivering. And here's a bonus cool side effect. When you balance firmness with care, your feedback actually lands. People hear it. They don't get defensive. They don't tune out. They know it's coming from a place of respect, not frustration. And that's how you build a high-performing culture. Not with fear. Not with, we're all one big family. None of those speeches. But with consistent, calm, direct communication. Now, let's be real. You're not going to nail this every time. Ask me how I know. You're going to overcorrect. You're going to underreact. You'll have moments where you walk away from a meeting thinking, that didn't come out right. And that's okay. That's part of this process. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about calibration. Constantly adjusting, realigning, rebalancing. You start noticing these patterns faster. You start recognizing your own tells. The sigh before you speak, the silence that lasts maybe a little bit too long, the tone that goes just a touch too sharp. And you learn to pause before you react, to lead, not to lash out. And that's where the real growth of your team is going to happen. When you can look at yourself and say, yeah, I was a little too sharp there. Next time I'm going to slow it down. Or, yeah, I let that slide a little bit too long. Next time I'm going to speak up sooner. That's emotional maturity. That's leadership maturity. You're not just managing others, you're managing yourself. And that's when people start trusting you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. They know your feedback is fair. They know your expectations are steady. They know they can mess up and still have a conversation, not a confrontation. So if you've been worrying about being too harsh or being too soft, stop it. Stop trying to pick one. Start learning how to be both, because the best leaders are firm in what they expect and flexible in how they get there. They're strong without being scary, and they're kind without being passive, clear without being cold. And that's the perfect line that every manager, every great manager learns to walk. Now, if you want a simple plug and play guide that helps you lead with this kind of balance, grab this right here, the Manager's Playbook. It's built for real world leadership, the kind you do between back-to-back meetings, Slack pings, and those, you got a second hallway chats. It's not theory, it's not fluff. It's a practical, a step-by-step playbook that helps you show up as a leader that your team wants, that they need. Because the best bosses don't wing it. They start to build it. And they also enjoy a great cup of coffee. See you in the next video. Ciao.